So again, welcome everyone. Looks like we have all of our speakers. So I think you guys are all have your videos on, except John Vincent, you might need to turn yours on and unmute because I'm going to ask you to say hello. So we've got a number of experts, community experts on tonight. And first I'll introduce Edwin. Edwin, he's in my block, he's right here next to me. But he is our founder of ABODE. Edwin was a hospice chaplain for a period of time.
Many years.
Many years.
Many years.
And he's someone I look for. He's kind of one of those old souls that just brings a presence wherever he's at. So, questions for him, I think he can answer a lot of spiritual questions that patients have brought up as they're nearing death. Because as you know, the chaplain is a big part of patients who are on hospice. They're part of their team. And so he might be able to share some stories. We also have Lynn Staggs. And Lynn, go ahead and wave she's over here with me on my other side. And Lynn is one of our end of life or death doulas. And so I'm going to have her kind of share what that is. And so she helps people at end of life. She's also a spiritual counselor, so she can help us with some of those spiritual questions as well. Down here in the bottom corner on my screen is Gennaro. Gennaro, wave your hand. And you look outside. Are you at Countryside right now? No? Oh, you're muted, Gennaro. So he is a funeral director for Compassion Funeral Homes.
Correct.
And he works really close with Sonny Markham out at Countryside Memorial Park. And he's going to be our resident expert on burials, what happens to the body after death, and those kind of questions. You could be even the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out questions.
That's right.
And John Vincent, where are you, John? Did he just hop off? All right, he might hop back on, but John is coming back on. And John is one of our navigators at ABODE. John also runs our grief program, and we meet at ABODE the third Sunday of every month at 3:30. And John runs that program. So he does grief, and he gives us a lot of grief sometimes. So John, turn your video on and wave. Yeah, so he's still giving us grief. Great. And then of course, me, you all know me, Beverly Tuomala. I'm a hospice nurse. I'm an end of life or death doula. And I am on the board at ABODE, and I enjoy talking about death. I'm that person, and my friends just put up with me. But anyway, so let's open. So tonight's going to run. You're going to ask questions. We'll answer them. There's John. Wave, John.
Hi.
He's at ABODE working, so he'll be off and on. But so tonight's going to run. We'll just open the floor to questions, and if we hit a dead spot, I'm going to pop a question in there. Okay, so would anybody like to open up with a question? If not, I have plenty. So those of you who might be shy as well, you can put it in the chat and I'll read your questions. So feel free to put your questions in the chat, and I'll put the chat up and I'll ask your question for you.
Can I just blurt here a question? So what is the policy on how long you have to wait until, like, if the body's at home, how long until the body's picked up, and then how long does the body need to stay wherever it's taken to I guess that's one question I have after our just most recent experience we've had.
Gennaro, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take it. Hi guys. Yeah, so I've been doing funeral directing for about 23 years. And of course in school they taught me how to do the embalming and chemicals left and right, things like that. Um, just kind of with as the years progress and everything, I came into the natural burial world, and I fell in love. And as I tell my other colleagues, my other embalmer colleagues, they just kind of like, we wanted to do cremation until we found out about this natural burial. So now we want to do that. So along with the natural burial or natural world, kind of, it's the old school, but just kind of coming back into being okay, being, people finding out that it's legal, we could do it. So then there comes this questions: how long can we leave the body? When should we call the funeral home? Things like that. Definitely, our part as funeral directors is to file the death certificate with the state. So the sooner the better when you call us, just to report the death, for sure. We can start the process of the death certificate, report of death, burial transit permit, things like that. And then there's some places that are going to be like, no, we got to pick up right away kind of thing. I like to tell everybody just to slow down. There's definitely no rush. The death occurs, call the loved ones that need to come in from out of town, wherever they may be. Take care of your loved one. Take care of your loved one. Bathe them, dress them, shroud them. I mean, just hug them, love on them, kiss them, just spend time with them. I mean, it's okay. I left a loved one for 24 hours at home. We took the precautions, kind of like the dry ice wraps, things like that. Definitely AC in the house, pretty low. Just kind of taking those precautions. Mainly the thorax area, just kind of like where the organs are, because that's usually what goes first. So you want to keep that area super, just kind of refrigerated with the dry ice for sure. So I would say 24 hours is okay. Some people are okay with just 12, 16 around there. I mean, if you really want to push it, the holiday in special, kind of like 3 days, 2 nights. I mean, you could, as long as, we're in contact. Hey, this is what we like to do. It's okay. It's under a funeral director supervision kind of thing. We're taking the precautions that the death has been reported, kind of thing. So definitely be in contact with the funeral director, and the key word is going to be willing. So it's definitely going to be someone that's going to be willing to be okay with it, with your wishes, and just kind of aware, just to kind of be an outsider looking in, just kind of things like, what, there's no misconduct or mismanaging or of kind of like the situation per se, and then just kind of, just walk you along. And
I have a
but
question.
then again,
If let's say you don't do that. Let's say you leave your loved one there for 24 hours, 36 hours, and you don't ice them down. What's going to happen?
so nature takes its course. The softest tissue is definitely gonna start decomposing. It's gonna produce gases, and eventually, the more the gas builds up, it's gonna find an exit. So whatever holes are available closest to it, kind of thing, is just gonna find the exit. So it's gonna start pushing whatever is on the way.
So it gets
So
smelly?
well, yeah, yeah. So it's definitely gonna be smelly and yeah, messy for sure. So yeah, that's what will happen.
Okay.
It's really the gas is building up and finding an exit and just pushing along whatever's in front of it. Mhm.
I think the longest I've left a patient. I had a patient die at home, and the family wanted to spend one last night with her.
Sure. Yeah.
And so she died about 3 in the afternoon. And she went to one of the local funeral homes, and I called them and let them know. Um, and they said, fine, just let us know when they're ready to pick up. And
Right.
they picked up the next day about 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's okay. It's healing. I mean, it's everything. It's really the last time, you know, it just means a lot. But definitely, I mean, we have to let go. So there's gonna be that time towards like, okay, I've had my time. And usually 8 to 24 hours is sufficient.
I see Brenda has her hand up. January.
Yes. Hi. And so I understand about the decomposition and the buildup of gases and all that. But my my fear for myself and then like my parents, because you see it on the news, the movies and stuff, like, do your bowels and everything just come out? Is that something that happens when you die? Like, you would poop yourself or whatever, like, because they always say, well, everything relaxes and everything comes out.
Right.
And so
Yeah,
that,
not
I
every
know,
time.
of course, that's a fear.
Not every time. And it's a fear, Miss January. Who cares? Do it.
Times though, and when people are dying,
yeah.
they haven't eaten for a long time, so their gut's pretty empty.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty empty. Yeah.
I get
So
a
not
little-
everybody gets soiled. Not everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, some do.
I don't see it very often.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long, so once you have the body, then how long, is there like a legal time frame that you have to kind of do something with it? Or somebody told me
Not
that there was
specifically.
like a 10-day thing in case an autopsy needed to happen. Or for
Yeah, so
a
yeah,
legal.
no, for holding the body, it's okay. With refrigeration nowadays, we can wait. Um, I have somebody that's been with me for 2 months right now in refrigeration, just because the family's kind of trying to narrow things down. The wife is, and I mean, it's just kind of that. So it's a little silly and all, but I'm just a patient guy, and I just kind of work with whoever or whatever the situation might be. So there's really nothing. The death has been reported. A death certificate has been filed, signed, and printed. So we have all that. So now it's just a matter of setting the date. And in this case, is the funds. She hasn't paid the cemetery, so they're not gonna allow her in. So I'm just kind of there waiting for that to be taken care of. So no, there's no specific. I buried somebody that was in somebody else's refrigeration for 6 months. There was some family issues, and finally the judge, ruled something, and I was able to pick up, and it had been 6 months. So yeah, there's gonna be different situations,
What
but
about
with refrigeration, yeah.
Gennaro? I'm under the impression that once a death has occurred, they can't be buried, cremated, I guess, unless there's special circumstance, like a Jewish person, but usually they hold the body for 3 days before they cremate.
Yeah, so the state asked for 48 hours before cremating. As far as burial, it could be that afternoon. I mean, it could be within the
They
hour
can
or
always
two.
exhume the body if
Yeah,
they
you can always, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne?
Wayne.
Gennaro, okay, I got to
Yes, sir.
ask this question because I like horror
Yeah.
movies. Okay, how
I like
long?
your coffee cup.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Oh, you mean this one?
I mean that one. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My question is, you said you've held somebody for 6 months. What does a body look like, a dead body look like after it's been in cold storage for 2 months, 3 months,
Yeah.
6 months?
Involved.
Yeah, so it really it really depends on the refrigeration. But It changes some, and definitely the refrigeration slows down the composition so much. Just like having any meat in the refrigerator, it's
Yeah.
gonna build something over topical. A little bit of the humidity part, just kind of like the darkness of it. It's gonna dehydrate from like the real thin, the eyelids, the nose, the ear, the lips, kind of like the softest tissue is gonna dehydrate for sure. But refrigeration is pretty awesome.
I was going to say that if for that person, for your client who you've had refrigerated for 6 months, you don't expect them to be, I mean, you're waiting for a burial. They're not, their body won't be, can their body be presented? How long can their body be in the deep freeze and still be presentable?
Yeah, I wouldn't advise it at this point anymore for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every case is gonna be different depending on the fatty tissue and just kind of like the overall body itself,
Okay.
medication that the body's been, before death kind of thing. But I would not advise it after 2 weeks of refrigeration, maybe just because a lot can happen in 2 weeks, even in
Yeah.
refrigeration.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so if there's going to be any kind of viewing, yeah, we want to hurry up on that. And then we put them back in refrigeration if they want to wait.
Okay, well, I'm going to switch gears here for a minute. Edwin and Lynn, you can poke in on this one if you want to. What do people fear spiritually as the end of life gets close? Like, do they worry about heaven? Do they worry about hell? Do they even worry about that at all? Um,
It depends. Everyone has a different path, and they may very well have prepared for their dying in a spiritual sense, also in a kind of a taking care of business sense to make sure that those concerns or care that they might have for people who are left behind are easy to handle. So wills and so on are important. Living wills are really important. Uh, so there are people who are go easily into the passage from life to death. Other people, again, just depending upon the person, may find that he's, felt like he's pretty ready to die, and that he's done all of his work. But then when he starts to die and begins to lose some ability to communicate, or he begins to experience biological changes and sometimes mental changes that have to do with anxiety and fear, and those can impact a person's dying process too, although he may very well have prepared well for it. And some people would say in his dying process that the anxiety and the fear is just part of it. It's nothing really to dwell on in terms of worry or concern. But others can be really quite upset about their dying process. I'm remembering a hospice patient that we were caring for who lived alone. He really didn't like hospice workers coming around, but he allowed them to come in to see him. But it was really clear that he really didn't want very much in terms of care, and also suffered from pain and suffered from spiritual pain, and was really resistant to being helped, either through presence or conversation or medications or what have you. And I remember that the hospice team really struggled with how we could help him. And this had been going on for a few weeks. I remember being in the team meeting when the whole hospice team is together with the doctor talking about him, because people really wanted wanted him to find some peace or some relief or some relief from his suffering, and there just didn't seem to be anything that he would allow. And the way that he expressed that was with a lot of anxiety and yelling, and really hard sometimes to go to see. And it was really interesting how it helped me to think about stages in a person's life like that, when we so much want to help, and sometimes loved ones aren't able to provide some sense of relief, or hospice workers may not, or people at ABODE may not. And what the hospice doctor said was so interesting to me. And she said, we've done everything we can. We've tried our best to help. We've offered the best kind of care we know how to do. We can't seem to break through. And she said, and he's probably going to die in that state. But she said, I think that what happens at death is an immediate yes. So that transition from the material world into the spiritual world is if stepping into an acceptance of the aspect of whatever that is. It's yes. And there was a sense, I think, for all of us of a trust that that's the case, that no matter what I might be going through when I'm dying, when I die, that sense of spirit will readily go into the transition with a real vibrant yes, because here it is.
Well, they say that when
Remember
Steve
that.
Jobs died,
Pardon me?
when Steve Jobs died,
Uh-huh.
he just, it was almost like right at the moment of death, he said, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and don't we see that sometimes, this kind of, shimmer or something in a person's face when he dies, and when spirit is released in that sense. Yeah, or people who reach up into the heavens, we've seen that so frequently too, at the moment of death.
Thank you, Edwin. We have a question from Ann Alexander. We're going to piggyback on Zet's question. Who do we call when our loved one passes away? Is there a number that we can call, like emergency services, or is there a separate service? I guess it's meaning if they're not on hospice. Yeah. So if a loved one dies at home, my best guess, we just call 911.
Thank
What
you.
about you, Janara?
Yeah, I replied to her that you call hospice if under their care, or any official if not, like the police or the county deputy. They will call EMS and or the justice of the peace and medical examiner, depending on whether their location is.
Yeah. And often, like if I'm in this city, Bear County, part of my process is I call the medical examiner and report the death so they can record it. And then if I'm outside the county, I call the sheriff. And sometimes the sheriffs come just to make sure that everything's above board or whatever. Or sometimes they just take the information on the phone.
And is that because the medical examiner is aware that it's a hospice death and it's to be expected?
Yeah, because we record or we report all of our patients to them. So they've got a record. And so we've already registered our patient with the medical examiner that they're hospice.
Yes. So when we request a cremation permit from the medical examiners, before they issue it to us, they make sure that the death was reported. So that, everything just kind of is connected at some point.
All right, I've got a question for Lynn Staggs. Lynn, we keep using this word death doula or end of life doula. What is that?
Yeah, so that's an end of life doula, or death doula is a non-medical professional who has received training to help companion people who are dying or their family members. So that may be, if there is time and interest, that may be legacy projects to help maybe write or prepare maybe a t-shirt quilt or something like that, whatever's, or a collection of writings or a photo book. They can also help navigate the transition from medical, like life giving help, such as a hospital or medical, to hospice care. And that can be a different language, it's a different pace, it's different questions, different options. And during that initial transition, or even prior to that transition, that can be a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when someone's been sick for a long time. Maybe they've had a 9-year illness with cancer, or I don't know, 20 years with, say, a chronic disease, or even a shorter illness, but transitioning when the family is exhausted. It's helpful to have a person who companions this person with also the hospice team. It's done together for a smoother way. So I forget what I was going to say about that. So another thing is a doula can help maybe sort out or at least explore the legal issues, documents, end of life documents. A person may already have all those documents, but how old are those documents? Are the people still who are named in those documents still living or local or whatever? And a doula does not in any way help make decisions, does not in any way create documents, but they can help explore what is already there or what needs to be done and help the person and their family to move in that direction before they die.
Well, thank you. You know, it is a difficult transition to go from the medical model to the hospice model. And hospice workers, we're not there a lot. We're there an hour each visit or less, and we might only come once or twice a week. So you guys could be there in between time and really establish relationship.
We're given a lot of training in deeper listening so that we can really hear the story of the person, or as the person has now time to really think a lot of things, maybe a lot of questions have emerged. A doula has time to sit and really be with the person or the family and to gather resources, maybe for grief counseling or funeral arrangements that can help navigate that, and just be present. It's another person who, it's a more contemplative practice, I would say, than the hospice role.
Yeah, for sure. Is that, you had a question?
Actually, I just wanted to first express gratitude for the death doulas that we worked with earlier last week, Susan and Terry.
Very, yeah.
Very helpful. And one particularly helpful thing was they encouraged us, a group of friends who was helping a friend pass, to do the shrouding and body washing after she had died. And the 6 of us who were gathered around, none of us had done it. All of us were scared. Zed had a handout that the doulas had given her, just step-by-step process. And it was deeply moving for me, I know, and it has changed I won't go on how much it's changed, and I also know it helped the husband of the deceased immensely to come to closure. It was just such a gift, and I want to express gratitude for that. And
Beautiful
recommend-
ceremony.
Beautiful. Just that shrouding and washing was.
And the flowers and essential oils. I mean, it was, yeah. It's like, okay, I want that. I'm ready.
Well, that's beautiful.
So that's one thing. And then totally separate, I have a question. I've now been, in addition to that friend, I've been with 3 other close loved ones in their last days, and been with them and all died in pain the last couple of days. The pain that was ameliorated by the morphine and the Ativan anxiety thing. And at some point in the last day, each of them became so pained and so restless that they were given more morphine than they had been. You know, suddenly there was a decision made in the room. And what guidelines are there about that point? That
Yeah.
point when you
Because
stop
there
doing
were-
the schedule
and-
and the patient is obviously in pain
And there were family members who weren't okay with that because it was like pushing them, you know.
But they were so clearly near the end, hadn't eaten, hadn't communicated, and it was clearly the last days, last hours, and each time the medication was increased, or the morphine, I guess it was, and maybe it helped them go faster or didn't. I don't know. I'm not clear about that. I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and very common question I get as a hospice nurse. So at the very end, like this period of time that you're talking about, I am certain that these folks were in terminal restlessness. It doesn't really mean they have physical pain, but anytime you are anxious, restless, just can't settle down, to me, that's almost like spiritual pain. So we've got to medicate it. And so, you know, when we initially begin to give morphine to patients, we start with a very low dose. And you know, if you've ever taken care of a hospice patient, it's 0.25 of the liquid morphine. And then we'll increase it to 0.5. And then we can increase it to 1 milliliter, so a whole syringe full. And really, there's no ceiling. Typically, I've only had to give somebody 1 full syringe, which is 20 milligrams hourly, to calm them down and to help them sleep and not be so restless. I can also couple that with lorazepam at the same time. Lorazepam should only be given about every 4 hours because it does last quite a while. But you know, patients' families have gotten very concerned. Well, that's a lot, and if they're still moving and agitated, it's not enough. So, you know, don't ever think that you're over medicating and that you're going to kill them, because again, 20 milligrams of morphine isn't going to kill anybody. But so, you know, once we give it every hour, you know, usually within 24 hours, it catches up, and there'll be a point where they're quiet and we don't need to give it anymore.
But they're not actually in pain in your experience. That you're thinking it's more the restlessness of approaching the threshold.
Yeah, because dying is not painful, but the disease is. The disease is painful. So if they've had pain all along, they're going to have pain until they die. So, but you know, I just think anybody who's writhing in the bed, they're trying to get up, and they're just all over the place, that can't be settling to their, you know, their spiritual self.
Mm-hmm.
So I medicate them until I get them calm and quiet. And it's very disturbing to the loved ones who are watching, and exhausting. Courtney, you had a question?
This is related to what you're talking about. And since I'm new as a doula and a navigator, I'm still learning a lot. But the other day on Sunday, the person ended up transitioning the next day, and his decline was very rapid from when he came in. He was fully conscious and like interactive and speaking, having full conversations, to like a week he couldn't speak. And they kept saying, he's saying he needs his brief checks. And then I think I spoke with Anthony about it, and he said that oftentimes they feel like they have to go to the bathroom at the very end. And that hasn't been something, usually they just go or they don't, but I have never experienced that where they felt like they were going, but they weren't.
Yeah.
So,
You know, it's just this restlessness, and they don't know what they need. And so they often think, I have to pee, I have to get up, got to get up, I got to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Now
what
I know that that's one of the things. I mean, I know restlessness and terminal restlessness. I just didn't know that specific symptom. Like he felt like he just went to the bathroom. That one.
And I've had 4 families lug their loved one to the toilet like 3 times in an hour, and they
Yeah.
haven't. And I'll just
Right.
say, just medicate that.
Right.
Great question. John, let's talk about grief for a moment. What do you think? Like, who has the most difficult time with grief? Have you seen any patterns of people who are having a difficult time with grief? What is there a theme? You got to unmute.
There. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Who has the most difficult time with grief? Gosh. I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, grief is a natural response to loss, and everybody deals with loss differently.
You know, we talk a lot in hospice about complicated grief or preeminent grief. What is that?
Yes. Well, preeminent is, of course, before anticipatory grief, when someone knows that their loved one is going to die, assuming we're talking about death, grief, because grief can be over any loss, not necessarily someone dying, but it could be loss of a job, it could be loss of a relationship, whatever. But anticipatory is knowing that it's coming, and being. Someone was just here last Sunday sharing that, going through that experience. And complicated is just like it sounds. It's complicated because of different aspects that are brought into it. It's not just a simple case of, and there's so many different scenarios. It can be, for example, we just had Mother's Day, just to give one example of many. We just had Mother's Day where a clear, if we can call it this, a clear-cut case of grief is, I lost my mother and it hurts because I love her, I miss her. But someone else may have had a very rotten relationship with their mother, and so it makes it very complicated, and there's a lot of different aspects of it. To the pain, there's the pain of missing her, but there's also can be pain. There might be anger, there might be resentment, there might be a lot of different things that can be very confusing too. People can feel very conflicted with why am I feeling this, or why am I not missing this person, or why, anyway, that falls under complicated grief. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
But
And we talk about that a lot. So
And the grief group, there's a grief group that meets at ABODE, on the 3rd Sunday? Is that, can you clarify that?
can you tell us about your grief group?
yeah, it's every 3rd Sunday. We're at least starting out. We've been doing it for we've had 8 meetings now, for 8 months we've been doing it. And we may or may not increase that, but that seems to have kept up with people's needs so far. And it's a very low commitment, anybody's welcome. And we're honoring anybody's grief over any kind of loss. And it's a very relaxed kind of environment. People are welcome to share what they want to share or not share anything at all if they're not comfortable sharing. And they can just sit and listen if they want to. No, we make that very clear to everybody that nobody's on the spot to share anything that they don't want to. And it's been very relaxed, to me, I think, and to everybody that has come, it's very enjoyable. There's been a lot of raw emotion shared, and at the same time, a lot of joy, a lot of laughter. And people are helped, I think, one of the things we find in working with people with grief, the main thing they need is to be seen. One of the main things they need is to be seen, because there can be a real sense of isolation that accompanies grief, where people don't feel they have anybody to talk to, or if they do try, people don't understand or are very uncomfortable talking about it. So a lot of times the person that's grieving just closes up because they don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. And then, but that compounds the feeling of isolation. So it can be very relieving for people just to come and share their grief and be with other people. That it brings a lot of normalcy to it, instead of feeling like you're weird or there's something wrong with you because of your grief, or that you're still grieving. There's a lot of misconceptions about grief. We live in a very grief illiterate society. So this group is, and it's not therapy, just to make that clear. But it is therapeutic. It has been very therapeutic for most of the people that have come. For me, listening, it's been beautiful. I've really been honored to be part of this.
Well, Susan had a question, and kind of what you were just talking about. She said, how can you help someone who doesn't seem to be grieving? For example, the person who's just empty and isn't sad.
Well, good question. And Susan, if you figure that one out, let me know. If someone doesn't want to, like a lot of things, the same thing is going to be applied to our contemplative approach in caring for the dying, that we're not here to fix things. We're here to accompany people and basically bear witness to what is going on and in their process. It's the same with grief. If people don't want to share, of course you can't make them. You can't browbeat them into. Personally, I think it's a big mistake to try to get somebody to. I've seen people do that. Like, come on, tell me what's going on. And you can just make people bottle up even more, make them more uncomfortable or fearful to share. And there is a lot of fear for people because you're letting yourself become very vulnerable in sharing your heart and your fears.
Are there any resources you recommend for people, like that we can tell?
Yeah, come to the ABODE Exploring Our Grief grief group. There's a lot. There's offhand, I mean, there's a lot of courses. There's so many books that have been coming out. If you just Google, I know I'm going to go blank right now with names of books, but there's way more than there used to be a number of years ago. Same thing as like with death. The whole concept of death is a whole revolutionary. It's becoming so much more common to find material online and in books and uh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm blank right now on recommendations, but maybe we could compile a list of
Yeah.
books and things for people to in answer to the question.
So question.
Can I add? I want to add something to this. Is sometimes when we're the person who's bearing witness to this person who is in obvious pain, whether they're expressing it outwardly or not, sometimes the greatest gift we can offer them is just to show up
Mm-hmm.
and just, be
Yeah,
present. Maybe share a cup of
definitely.
coffee, and maybe you don't even talk about the dying and death or the grief, but if you just show up often enough, then maybe that person will get to that place. But that
Right.
can't be rushed.
Yeah.
They are where they
Absolutely.
are. And that's true for someone who's dying, who doesn't want to talk about dying, death. They don't want to hear any of it. But if we can just show up to
Mm,
who they are in their moment, uh,
yeah.
it can be enough. Even we may feel helpless, but just showing up can be enough.
Right. Which there's lessons for ourselves in that, like why are we uncomfortable with just letting them go through their process? Why do we want to see something happen? It takes a lot of letting go on our part as well, because again, like I said, we're not there to fix things. There was somebody
Mhm.
who came, not this anyway, 2 sessions ago that wanted to have some one-on-one time with me after the meeting, and she said that it was quite sweet that she said that this is just what I wanted. I just wanted somebody to talk with. She said, you're not sitting there with a clipboard on your lap. You're not telling me about the 5 stages of grief. You're not, we're just talking. And she said, I don't want a psychiatrist telling me about the 5 stages of grief. I don't want
Mhm.
something faith-based. I just want someone to talk to. And in my experience, that's been um, the majority of people. And of course, just like anything, we need to know our lane. If someone does need real serious professional help, then that's going to be up to them to find that. And um, again, this is not the group we have here. It's not therapy, but it is therapeutic for some.
I love that. Not therapy, but it is therapeutic. And Zet put up healing after loss, daily meditations for working through grief on the chat. So
There
Mhm.
you go.
yeah,
It's so it can be overwhelming. There's so much material to narrow it down,
I
a
saw
project.
Wade has his hand up.
John, I couldn't agree with you more. I've been working with a lady now for the past year of working through the loss of her husband who died from pancreatic cancer after 40 days. And she's gone through those stages of death, okay? But but her biggest thing was being angry because
Mm,
she felt abandoned, right?
right.
And so it for her, I think it just helped like you, just for me to do that. The other thing I will say about grief, and kind of using you as an example too, I did grief the worst way. I I went through the deaths of two parents in 5 years, and it was very, very hard. And I got married twice badly because of it. Okay. you see me with my wife around, but I make bad life choices. And for me, that was extremely instructive. It was hard learning, but boy, I can, that's why I can kind of sit with somebody and talk to them about grief as long as they want, like you, because they need to get it out some way, somehow. And I didn't have that person. So,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that don't
yeah,
have.
It's a tough, tough thing.
yeah. Thank you.
We're approaching 7:30. I want to throw a question out to everybody. What is your biggest fear surrounding death? And feel free to share.
I have a question.
Yes, Rebecca.
It's actually the questions that you had on your email. What goes through our mind when we're dying, and do you know you're dying? Those two questions really, I don't know, spoke to me, but I want the answer.
Okay. Well, I'll do my part, and then whoever wants to pipe in. You know, a lot of people that I've cared for. Let me just share the screen. Anyway, a lot of people that I've cared for with that are dying, their families don't really want to face it, and so they don't talk to them about it. And then they don't talk, then they don't talk to their families about it. And but the loved ones, they know they're dying. And I've gone into somebody who's went in rapid decline, and I'll go to the bedside, and the family's frightened because everything's changed. They're no longer eating, and they're not drinking, and they just sleep a lot, and they're a little disoriented. And I'm not afraid to say to them, "You're dying, and this is what dying is like." And almost 100% will look at me and nod, like, "Yeah, I know."
Oh, okay.
And what goes through your mind? I think most of what I see, outside, like prior to the terminal restlessness, and again, not everybody has that episode where they're really restless, but right after that, there's this peace. And I would just imagine that, that our loved ones just know that they're dying, and they know where they're going. And it's such a common thing for them to see loved ones come to visit and to help them make that transition. So how wonderful would that be to have, your husband or your mom or a dog even show up to help you cross over?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that with our friend Betty, who just passed. At one point, towards the kind of almost the last things she said to me was, "This is taking too long. It's so boring." So I just really thought that kind of put everything in perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to speak to my greatest fear around dying is that I won't be conscious at the end. I've spent most of my adult life cultivating consciousness and meditating and, trying to be aware, and went fervently to be aware when the moment of crossing over. What if I'm just not there? And what if I'm so doped up that I'm not, but I also don't like pain. I want to be doped up. So anyway,
Come on, Rudy. I'm with him. I'm with him on it. Just kind of listening to the experts on the hospice part of it. I just want to die gracefully, I don't, even if I'm in pain, I want to feel that pain. I mean, I just want to feel dying. I just want to make sure that I experience just along like Rudy, but I will take the pain. I will die gracefully feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gracefully, that's, yeah.
Yeah. I want to go at 2:30 in the morning, having had a wonderful day, and still in my sleep.
No, not at 2:30 in the morning. I get the 3 a.m. call, and then it's like,
Tell Gennaro,
Mom,
come and get me.
no, just wait.
You know,
Hospice, please tell them. It's like, okay, just go back to sleep and then call us back at 5 in the morning.
when my mother passed, I was not there. And for the longest time, I, beat myself up because I wasn't there for her when she died. And then I realized that once I had some time with it, that she wanted to be alone. That she was a very private person and she wanted to be alone when she died. And that just kind of relieved a lot within me once I saw that.
Absolutely. Yep. They're going to go when the time is right for them. And oftentimes they don't want to be there or have an audience. It's a very private thing. Yeah. Well, this was awesome. We need to do this again. I have really, really enjoyed tonight. And thank you, Lynn and Gennaro and Edwin and John. This was beautiful. And we will do this again. We're going to have a pop-up ABODE Academy later this summer on sticky situations, sort of, that hospice, kind of ethical things that we go through, about medications or withholding food and water. If the patient wants to stop eating and drinking, is that okay? And if the family's not okay with it, I mean, just really kind of difficult situations. And we'll put it out on our emails, and hope some of you can come and enjoy that. Just want to let you know, Death Cafe occurs the second Saturday of every month at ABODE from 2 to 3:30, and the topic is death. So come and just share, and there's no set agenda. We come and we talk about whatever. So and we always have cake and coffee or tea, and then we follow that with a contemplative drum circle. So if you've got a drum, bring it, and we'll go out back and drum. I think for the summer, we're going to go to someone's house because it's pretty hot out in the backyard in July. And then
we've moved it, and we'll be at one of our volunteers' house for drumming until probably October. So if you're interested, just drop a note to info@abodehome.org and we'll send you the address.
Yeah. And then just if you're interested, on Saturday, July 26th, that starts our next doula, end-of-life doula training. So if that's something you're thinking about and maybe want to do, shoot us an email, and we'll give you all that information. And then we also have an end-of-life yoga. July 26th starts yoga, end-of-life yoga certification. And then September 13th is our end-of-life doula certification. So we got lots of stuff happening at ABODE, and if you don't get our newsletters, we'll make sure we can try and get one out to you. Follow us on Facebook. We'll put all these things on there. Instagram. We're on all of those platforms. And I just really appreciate you guys. And I thank you for spending your evening with us. And it's been a wonderful 5 weeks. And I'll see you again when we do ABODE Academy 9.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one more question. The grief group, is that for an hour and a half? How long? What's the time?
John, you're on mute.
There it goes. Yes, it's an hour and a half. It starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and goes till 4:30.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you all, and God bless, and we'll see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.